Well, very lovely good morning. Thank you for staying with us here on BTM Television. That is the Daybreak. Well, of course, it is time for the topical discussion where we'll be, breaking down into matters of national importance. It will be politics, it could be economics, but then for today, we'll be speaking matters of politics, we'll be speaking matters of the NRM caucus, the Iron Sheet scandal, and the political space in Uganda, as we understand that a few days ago, just a bit of 1 day ago, we saw Dr. Kano Kizavesti coming out and saying that he was ready to dialogue with Museveni, to dialogue with General Muhoozi about the transition of power, that is the presidency post in Uganda. And of course, to divert or to dissect these matters today, we are privileged to host a political analyst, and that is Mr. Kakoze Balude Timothy. Good morning, sir.
Morning, sir.
How are you?
I'm good, thank you.
You okay?
Nice being here once again.
Okay.
It's been a while.
Yeah, it's been a while, but then the Daybreak is here to, of course, bring to Ugandans and bring people like you who can dissect those matters for them.
We appreciate it.
Yeah, but of course, I would like to pick on the light side of it. How you drive a car? How do you feel with the pothole situation in the country?
There are some places in this country where the roads are good. There are some few areas in this city where there are potholes, like any other city in Africa or in the US, wherever, because I've been privileged to travel. I know, even there. So when you say pothole, in an area where you come from, maybe somebody else somewhere else does not have it.
Is KCC doing enough about this?
A little bit, because it's given to, it all depends on the budget they are given. It depends on the priorities of the government as they allocate resources. They can say, let's first reconstruct this road, renovate it, and then they say the other one shall be worked on in the next financial quarter. I think let's be patient with them. They are trying to do the right thing. Well, I always hear some of the councillors, the road councillors claiming, these are the things we wrote, these are the programs, these are the policies. Yes, you make a policies. After that, you have to give them to the technocrats, people who put in implementation. Now, if they say, yes, that was you, because you needed the votes, you needed your voters to know that you have spoken about this. But according to the priorities we have, this is not what we have as a priority. We just have to be patient. Well,
good enough, the President Yoweri Museveni yesterday did make a comment that, at least some money should be allocated to KCC here, that is by the Ministry of Finance. Now, diving into the matters, we will of course start off with the proposed NRM caucus. That is, the President has summoned the NRM caucus, and would like to pick the points that what points should be discussed by this caucus this time round.
If not political, they should talk about the issues which touch the hearts of the people. One of which is misappropriation and misallocation of resources of this country, and the corruption and the financial embezzlement by the public officers who hold the public offices. It will be so important. But then it's also very wise to keep a communication in between, so that you can hear from each other. That alone helps you to be on the same page, to drive the same direction. So we are waiting and looking forward to hear what they will be maybe talking about. But primarily, that's what we would desire. That's what we would desire, because there are so many voices. There are so many, I think it's like, it's a force not well coordinated.
Okay. Well, Mr. Kakoza, from the sources are indicating that the Attorney General, and of course we did see him make a statement in Parliament that was earlier on this week about advising the President Yoweri Museveni not to assent to the anti-homosexuality bill. Now, this could also be one of the matters maybe to be discussed in the caucus. First of all, what do you make of the Attorney General's advice?
Why? Because he did not give his reasons. Until he gives the reasons, Mr. Chiwanuka has to give the reasons to why. You see, there is a deception that when maybe you make it a law, like an act, if the president signs it into an act, that the tourists will not come. Would you want to convince me that all the tourists who have been coming here are homosexuals?
Of course not.
Now, if they are not, why would we even be scared about that? Because they say, don't even do that because the tourists will not come. The nations of the world, like development partners, the development agencies, will stop supporting Uganda financially. Should we even say that it's the homosexuals who have been supporting us? Which is wrong. So there is need for this law such that the penalties of the perpetrators or the people who are doing it, the culprits, should be brought to accountability. But if you don't even have the law, you see we have been living with people for several years, many years, millenniums and millenniums. The witches, the cannibals, these other groups which are mentally disoriented, but they are not seeking for any special status or legal recognition. So if they say, don't assent to it because the development partners will pull back, it's like, I mean, it doesn't make any sense. Because not every country of the world is supporting it. There are even countries, more than 34.
Now, Mr. Kokoza, when you speak of countries in the world supporting and others not supporting because you received a lot of criticism, you know, and of course this is vis-a-vis the support that we've received on the international market. However, some legal brains have, projected that this could be a violation of the international, agreements or the conventions that Uganda is signatory to that do avail the rights of, these people.
Okay, they are rights of the people, and they're also immoral practices people do. If Uganda is a signatory to human rights commissions, it does not mean that Uganda is a signatory even to things which are contrary to the cultures, to the beliefs. And you see, this is typically like the Western world is doing social imperialism to countries which are developing.
Okay.
Yeah, that is social imperialism because they want to use a social imperialism to impose what they want on you. Not because it's a human right that you have violated, because there is no homosexual who has been maybe stoned at the state square there. None of them. But at least they are trying to guide the society. Because the primary role of the government in power is to guide using the policies and the programs and the law of the land. Now, if the law of the land is contradicting with the norms of the people, like this is our society, this is how we live. But now there is a social imperialist who is somewhere saying, until you do this, until you live my way, you live like I do, until you are able to embrace everything like I do it, it's not the right thing.
Well, when you look at so far the time that has been between the time Parliament passed this bill, this was earlier on in February, around February, March there, and up to now, the bill was sent to the president, and it has not yet been signed, not yet put into law. Is the president playing politics?
I don't think there is anybody who is playing politics there. It's a matter of giving time to everything to think about it and to think it through. You see, you cannot lead a country like Uganda while rushing. This is not an Islamic state. This is not a Christian state. It's a secular state. So you cannot just do rushing and do things like, if it were to be an Islamic state, it would be easy. We would just go to the Quran and say, this is what the Quran says. If it were to be a Christian state, we would just go to the Bible and say, no, this is what the Bible says in Leviticus, chapter 20 something. But you can't. You just have to have the caucus now to come up with one mind and say, what should we do? Are there some of the penalties we should put out? Is there some of the things that are scaring the world, like the maybe
Mr. was just in there. You just say that there's something, maybe you cannot just lead Uganda like that, and there's a need to think about it. What is there to think about? Because when you speak about the NRM caucus, these are the same members of parliament that did pass this bill. What was the president waiting for?
You see, when it was being passed, it was emotional. People were sensational, they were emotional. Everyone was saying anything to defend himself against his constituency, because they were saying, now let's see who is not supporting it, then they would group you and label you like the one who is supporting them. So for purposes of their constituencies, politically, they had to come up and say, I also support, I also support. But there are those that are behind. Let me give you an example. A person like Andrew Mwenda, who scares that if you sign it into law, I will challenge it in court. He's not married, he has no children. When you look at people who are supporting Nyege Nyege, the high-profile people, they have no children. Why wouldn't they support that?
So you're saying that these people could be also implicated in there. Well, let's finish with this. So should we be expecting Museveni, the president, to sign this bill maybe after the caucus, after it is discussed in the caucus? Because he did say that he needs to have conversations with the members of parliament, the stakeholders, and see to it that they can all come to a common ground. What should we be expecting?
It will take some time to sign it, but so finally he will.
Okay.
Maybe some few years or some few months, but he will.
Okay. Well, we'll be moving away from that matter of the NRM caucus that will be sitting anytime soon. And of course, on the agenda, we expect them to be, breaking down and converging with the president on why the anti-homosexuality bill should be signed or should not be signed. Well, we'll of course be giving you updates when it comes to that matter. Now, yesterday we saw the third minister, that is Honorable Agnes Nandutu, being arrested and being committed to the High Court, and also being taken to Ruzira prison for about 2 weeks. She will spend there about 2 weeks as she awaits trial in the High Court. That will be on the 3rd of next month, May. Honorable, this is the third minister being arrested. And, should this create satisfaction that NRM government is doing something?
NRM government has been committed to fighting corruption and the stealing or embezzlement of the public funds. On the 5th of April, 2007, President Museveni directed Faith Mwoda, who was then the IGG, that you should arrest the people who have stolen the government money. Amongst the people who were arrested, some of them were members of the First Family. He did not spare any. We saw the vice president of this country going to prison in Luzira for stealing the money that was meant for Chogam. We have seen generals like, I can't mention their names, definitely you know them, like Mwezi, who has been in the prisons. Even though they bounced back and they paid for their sin, but at least you have seen this government, we're back, committed. All these initiatives like State House Anti-Corruption Unity, the Anti-Corruption Court in Kororo here, the IGG's office, police crime detectors, all these people are being facilitated to fight corruption. So, Nandutu, Ogi Chitutu, or the Rugorobiz are not the first people that the government has put in Luzira for abuse of office and abuse of resources. And misallocation of resources. Isn't
this politicking by the NRM government? Because, Museveni maybe expects that this could be, laying ground for the NRM government to win the people's favor when it comes to the elections of 2026.
What was he winning then in 2007 when he arrested the Mwezis and he put them in Luzira? What was he winning when he put Gilbert Bukenya, the vice president of this country, in Luzira? What was he winning? The very thing, if you say, you see, the war to corruption, we can only lose it if it goes political, religious, tribal, regional, If you arrest people and then people come up and say, release them, forgive them. The first people who came to say, forgive Muhwezi, were people from Ukunjiri. Now, if I arrested somebody, these messages, the ones you were talking about, do you know how he became an opposition leader? He went and formed his own thing. After the scandals he had made with the buying of the uniforms of the army and other things. So if we handle that, the war of corruption, and we take it, we deviate it. If you deviate it to be political, to be beneficial to the next election is in 2026, it becomes hard. Now you can't fight them because you will say, oh, if I touch them, these are untouchables. They're in this, you cannot even touch them because you need the votes there. You are losing more. You lose both the resources, man take it, and then you also lose the votes in that region. So it's important to handle them as the law says, because when they swore to take office, they said, as the law established, so help me God. Now you said, I will run this office as the law established. There are ethics, there are things you swore to operate like the law, how it says.
Mr. Kakoza, you've been in Uganda, you've witnessed, several corruption scandals, like we did speak, the likes of Jim Muhwezi, the likes of, the current vice chairman of NRM, that is Mike Mukura from Soroti, and very many corruption scandals. But then, where do we see this corruption scandal ending? Because at the end of the day, we've seen these ministers who have been implicated being reinstated at some point. And, this, of course, makes Ugandans lose hope. Where should we be expecting this?
Are you supposed to slap your mother-in-law? Just say if you were married. I don't know if you were married.
Not yet.
When you get married, are you supposed to slap your mother-in-law?
Definitely not.
If not, if you do slap her, what is done?
That, of course, would be considered to be something that is immoral. But then,
do people slap them?
Of course not.
No, they do.
Really?
I've seen people slap their mothers-in-law. And actually, I've ever seen on TV when a mother-in-law is slapping a son-in-law. So it is immoral, but it's not illegal. You understand? That we need to put the law, an act there, whether in the Penal Code Act or in the Constitution of Uganda, that when you slap your mother-in-law, you have not committed, it's an equivalency to the incest.
True.
You understand? But now it's not there. Now, until the Parliament of Uganda is able to put a law that recovers, you see, we don't have the law that makes recovery. Now you have arrested Kitutu. She went to prison. She was bailed out. She has that temporary freedom. Now she comes to court. How do you recover the things she took? You cannot unless you have the law. So it's the parliament now to have the penalties in the law of anti-corruption. And you say, if we find this studio, you have stolen one camera from us, we'll not know which camera you stole from us and which camera you bought. Therefore, we shall confiscate all the cameras and take the whole studio, because we don't know what is ours and what is yours.
Mr. August, just in that, when you look at some of the corruption laws or the laws that deal with corruption in Uganda, we have one that, of course, bars someone from holding public office. Well, the ministerial posts are not public offices as per se. And of course, this has also raised the question as to why most of the ministers have not yet resigned. And of course, will be.
But there is a law. The moment a public officer stands before the judge, you automatically don't go back to office.
Well, according to the Minister of Information, Dr. Chris Malyomunsi, he did confirm that these are not, public officers as per se, and that is why they've not resigned yet. But then there's this law that bars, these officers from holding office for at least, 20 years. But of course, we saw that is the likes of Kaboyo being brought back.
It was 7 years.
7 years, in fact.
Not 20.
Not 27.
Because she accepted, she conceded to her crime. She restituted, returned everything, and she accepted. The 7 years later, the constitution says 7 years. After 7 years, you are free to come back.
So is that isn't that a law, or maybe the laws are not enough?
They are not enough, because if I still, let's say, maybe like 39 billions, and you don't return me to your government for 7 years, what do I lose when I went with 40 billions? The 40 billions are enough, even if I'm not in your office.
So should the ministers...
We need the recovery. We need the law that can at least bite, and then you recover the things stolen from the government coffers. So
we've seen the likes of Minister Amos Ogorobe, who is currently being detained and is expected to be returning to court today to seek bail, and supporters from his constituency, specifically in Kayunga, did also come in there to say that he should be forgiven since he has returned the iron sheets. Where do we see an action like this, or where supporters now of a member of parliament or who has been arrested or implicated into corruption, which affects them at some point? What is a projection of these happenings?
I've been clear. And say when in 2007 President arrested Muhwezi, it is the people from Rukungiri who came and said, how can he arrest our son? Now the people of Kayunga, if the war of corruption goes tribal, goes regional, goes political, goes religious, you see when they arrested Kitutu, the bishop of Hara region went to Luzira to see her. It's like we are giving you our support. And then the president says, what can I do? The courts say, okay, give her bail, because now it has become religious. It has become tribal. It has become regional. You cannot arrest a person from my region. That's regional.
What is triggering these actions?
Punitivity, because people are ignorant about the law.
Should we say that maybe they want to also gain...
Arresting Lugorobi does not necessarily automatically guarantee that he is a criminal, that he stole. Because that's why they give them bail. Come out and defend yourself in courts of law and say, this is how I received the iron sheets. I was given them to me through this channel. Now the courts of law will know whether you stole, whether you abused the resources, whether you were found in possession with the stolen properties. Because all those things will be investigated. The DPP, that's why they sanction the fighters. Why do they sanction the fighters? They want to know whether you have a case to answer, whether you have no case. And eventually, the DPP can come and say, you have no case to answer. Then the court will say, okay, if he has no case to answer, the DPP has cleared him. It's only the Directorate of Public Prosecution that says you have a case to answer. Go and defend yourself in the courts. But if we do that, the war to corruption, and then people keep saying that, why did you arrest him? Is from my area. That's the man who has been giving us good money. No, that's not how the government operates.
Oh, okay. Mr.
And let me assure you, the moment you stand before court, you automatically don't qualify to go back to your office.
Now, that is
because you will disorganize the investigation.
That is why I want to pick your point of view. Ministers that have been implicated, others arrested, like we've seen, and the others that are not yet arrested, they've not resigned. According to Minister Waliomusi, they, it is at their own will to resign or not, because this is not a public office. Is this a good thing or a bad thing that they have not yet resigned?
Let me ask you a question. Like somebody who came in public and said, I used the iron sheets to my, I think it was either piggery or poultry or something like that. And he said that he did. And then he comes to court and says, I did not. Would the public trust him back?
Definitely not.
Would Kitutu, who came and says, well, I was misled, I will return the iron sheets for Karamoja, do they automatically qualify to return to offices?
That is a point that we would like
Absolutely, they may not come back to office. And I don't think we are there.
Why? Because they're not resigned publicly.
You see,
what is the government waiting for?
Resignation goes back at the appointing authority. You see, even when you are censored in parliament, if the parliament censors you, they have no power to throw you out by force. They have to write to the president who appointed you there. And they say, your member of your cabinet, member of cabinet, Mr. So and so, is being censored in parliament.
Like
so we are waiting for you to help us to confirm whether Namuganza is coming back or not coming back. So it all goes back in the powers of the president. Because now resign to who? Resignation letters should be put where?
Mr. Kakoza, when you look at the history of these corruption cases and how they've been handled, with some people bouncing back, doesn't this create a worry for Ugandans?
Should I say it politically or realistically?
Realistically.
Realistically, we have not been able. You see, the thieving system, stealing system. This stealing system is a system that has been going on for decades. Now, there are invisible monsters who are also involved. Let me give you an example. How much was supplementary? It was 39 billions. Now, that is way back at December in 2021. Between there, the procurement went on of goats, of iron sheets. Now, the only money that's being spoken about is about maybe like 9 billions or 8 billions that went for iron sheets. Nobody is talking about the 30 billions which went for goats. Now, because the thieving, these people have been stealing money from President Museveni in his government. You see, you arrest Kitutu, you don't show me the permanent secretary. You don't show me the commissioners who are involved. You don't show me the technocrats. You don't show me the procurers who procured. You are only taking one person. So Kitutu alone cannot help. So the war to corruption needs to seriously block, put a blockage to that plumbing system where that money flows. And you say we have blocked this plumbing. This pipe, this conduit is blocked now. That the money cannot go through it to these minor people like Kitutu and others. We need to know who are these people who are invisible monsters that are stealing public funds, but they're invisible.
The mafias.
Well, I don't know if they're mafias, but I don't know who are they, who they are, but they're invisible. They're behind the curtains, and then money ends up, the small money, of course, with the Babati, with the Gitutus and others, but the money is being taken by other people. So realistically, that's where our government needs to go.
Okay. Well, as we do conclude on this matter, what do you make of the arrest? You know, the way they were arrested, Minister Oguru being arrested over the weekend, spending, you know, those days in prison, and we've seen, you know, what do you make of these arrests? The way Minister Kitutu was arrested over the Easter period, is that unfair or it is fair?
There is no arrest that's fair. As long as based on law. You can be arrested on Christmas, on your wedding day. You could be arrested even when you are burying your mother, when the corpse of your mother is entering the grave, then we arrest you. Arresting is arresting. And you know what they do? They want to arrest you over the weekend when the courts of law are not open. They are not operating. So that you sleep in the custody, and then igakumyuke bulungi, and then on Monday they parade you in.
Well, that is what Mr.
I don't want to discuss cases in court.
Yeah, let's
because that you were the one who killed our
Well, Mr. Kakoza, we still have matters to, of course, dissect, and we'll now be speaking on to the matters of the political space in Uganda. That is after we did adopt the multi-party democracy, or maybe system that was earlier on in the 2000s. Now, when we speak about this, Mr. Kakoza, we understand that the opposition, that is, I would say, the grandfather of the opposition in Uganda, Dr. Kano Chizabeste, did say that he is ready to dialogue with President Yoweri Museveni and his son, that is General Muhoozi, about the transition. How realistic is this?
You see, I also know and agree that the opposition created a situation where the government acted like they denied them a fair ground or a fair political space. Because the very same people negotiate with the government on conditions. Out of fear, out of maybe they expect some money, so that's how they negotiate. But to dialogue is the best way to go. Uganda was built on different blocks. Karamoja was Turkana, Kenya. West Nile and Madi was an independent country under the Belgians. That's Arua and the Madi areas, and where you see some of the Arurus in the areas of Jumani and everywhere. And Nyaravuru, that's I think Ipakwachi Saidi. Now, people need to have a common ground where they can dialogue and agree on how to do politics in this country. Otherwise, the opposition in this country put themselves in a position where the government and the state more so deny them a freedom to that political space they want. Political space does not mean going telling lies about Museveni the person and his family and telling about the political party, a ruling party. Political space you need is not about inciting the public against the persons and the tribes and victimizing people. Political space means I will use my constituency and approach my constituency with consultative meetings and educating and sensitizing the public in my constituency or in my my sub-county or in my my parish, which the opposition today is not doing.
So are you saying that the opposition in Uganda has, gone personal?
Absolutely.
That is, focusing on President Yoweri Kaguta Museveni and the family.
Absolutely.
And then not national.
Yeah, that's what they do, because we even have new songs here which have been sung by the opposition leaders.
Now, how strong is this ideology of the opposition?
I don't know their ideology.
That is, of course,
all I know, they have a slogan, they have a color of a cloth, they have a ballet, they have a tribe, they have a religion. That's what I know. But if you ask me the ideology of the opposition, I fail to tell the ideology of the opposition. By the way, let me be honest with you. Even my ruling party, NRM, the 10-point programs are not an ideology. Now we have another ideology. Now that alone, until you have an ideology and you have a political program that you can market, because you don't have a program, Museveni will keep bringing his program. And when he brings his program, you will also jump over his program. I heard NUP was, I think, doing some amendments with their constitution.
Yeah, constitution, yeah.
That's what I heard. What are they preparing for? They are preparing for 2026, an election organized by the Electoral Commission. That they say it is Anna Museveni's law.
Okay.
The very amended constitution of NUP, let's say it was good amending it. But now, some of the people who have been in parliament for 4 and 5 tenures, they are the very same people who are saying, now this very term, we don't count it. We will start counting it 2026. Then when we start 2026, I will go for 2 terms. 2 terms plus this term, that's the 3 terms. Plus the 5 terms he's been there, that is almost 9 terms in parliament. So are you fighting dictatorship when yourself is you are building also a monarchy in your own constituency, just a simple constituency?
So, in fact, before we even, move to the political space dialogue and what, of course, the NUP being now the leading opposition political party, and with those amendments, if you could dissect for us deeply, do you think this is a plus for the party, or maybe this could disorganize them further?
A very big minus for the party, because in Uganda there is no tribe, or there is no religion, or there is no political party that has 100%. That's why we operate on percentages. And the constitution was clear. It is mathematical. Our constitution says you have 50% plus 1 vote, you make a government, you are the president. It says when you have this quorum in parliament, you control the parliament. Now, if they say dialogue between the CJ and the government is the way to go, we will support him 100%. Why? We believe in dialogue. We don't believe in insulting, in abusing, in throwing stones, in banning, in staging acts of war against an established state. There is no way you can remove the state. You can change the government, you cannot remove the state as far as we are. Now, if you say we want to dialogue, that's the way to go. The way forward for Uganda, how do we bring back a united Uganda? How do we bring back, how do we have an agenda that's common for the people, for the good of the people, not for the good of the politicians? You understand? Because we want what will benefit the people, not what will benefit a politician or the political party. Now for them, they want what will benefit a political party. Who has a mercy party here? It's LRM and FDC. Because NUP, there are regions where they don't even know what NUP is all about. But at least FDC is everywhere. FDC had gone everywhere. Now, we need to know if dialogue is the way to go. We welcome Besigye 100%. And maybe he can also try to speak, to convince the other groups of opposition and say, let's talk to the government. That will be more realistic than saying, I don't eat with them, I don't greet them, I don't sit with them, I don't dialogue with them. We have nothing to talk with the government. You are lying to yourself.
Why would they be lying? Because on several occasions that we've seen, a dialogue happen between some members of the opposition and the NRM government. These end up in the government, which is not a bad thing. However, isn't this continuously killing the criticism that the government needs, because it can also not function without the criticism, because it is from this that they arrange, organize themselves in line?
Does Uganda want criticisms? Does Uganda need critics, or Uganda needs think tankers? People who have the brains to think the way forward. People who have an alternative policy. People have an alternative. They brought a budget which was a concept paper. It wasn't a budget. It was just a simple thing which is like a disguised manifesto of 2026. Is that an alternative policy?
But these did provide, alternative methods or means on how to raise revenue for the country. Of course, that is
what is the budget
on corruption and things like that. No, this is was an explanation as to on how they can.
That's what I say. It's a wishful thinking. It's a concept paper. But budget is all about income expenditure. Did they show how they have been mobilizing the public to raise, at least to broaden the scope of our tax base?
That is, of course, fighting corruption.
No.
They've spoken about that.
But corruption, they are talking about the money stolen, not the money, not showing us how to create money. Because if Uganda is collecting 23 trillions, let's say, in our tax base, did the opposition in that concept paper say, we want to create wealth like this, and then after you create wealth like this, it creates more money, then the tax base will be this broader, like 30 trillions. Then when they are talking about expenditure, they're not talking about income. Number two, you need to know this. Why didn't they say we don't need Nakawa West and Nakawa East? We need one constituency there. Why didn't they say we don't need Kawempe North and Kawempe South? Why didn't they say because most of the money is going to salaries. Almost the 23 trillion is collected. We might be relying actually on the dates or on the loans we pick from IMF and elsewhere. So they need to come up and say the political question must be answered also before we think of the economic question.
Is Museveni, the president, open to dialoguing with the opposition?
That's why you see the Maus now are working with him. That's why you see so many people like UPC, like the people in the cabinet from Uganda people, Congress people, they are in government. That's why do you fear to dialogue? Because you say The very reason I had one day, I had Honorable Mwanga Chivumbi saying, the very reason we fear to take our people to dialogue with Museveni, he changes them. It means they stand for nothing, so they must fall for anything. If you know my people are strong, my people have an ideology to defend, my people can change Museveni. Why do you fear them to meet Museveni?
We've seen a dialogue between, like you said, the UPC, a dialogue between DP, that is Norbert Ma, who is now the current Minister of Justice and Constitutional Affairs. However, some of the things have not changed. You know, we've seen corruption is still going on. We are also still seeing, you know, the political space shrinking. That is opposition not being given, you know, the space to air out their views like the NRM government does. Wouldn't they be right if they say that nothing is changing?
And who is arresting now? These people we are arresting.
Definitely
the church or the mosque?
The government.
Is it Mama Fina? It's the government arresting them, which means the hand of law is working. That's why we say the judiciary is now working without fear or favor. That's why we say if we dialogue, we have a way to go. In fact, the primary law why they pay the opposition people, it's because it's constitutional. Number two, it's an alternative government. If they say we are an alternative government, it's like you cannot come up here and say Museveni rigged the votes and then he stole my victory. But thereafter you say, I went there and formed the lead of opposition. We are the one who's on the accountability committees. We have a shadow government that will be legitimizing the government that you say that it stole your votes. So don't lie to the public. You also considered in your heart and say, this man won the elections, the votes were fair and free, now I will work with him. If you say, this man here stole my wife, and then he took also my children, okay, he also took my house in him. Now he has sent me a letter to come and help him to prepare for a wedding with my stolen wife. And then I also go and be part of that. That means I'm legitimizing that marriage.
How is the rule of law working now when we are still seeing, you know, illegal arrests? Because we've seen people being illegally arrested in the wee hours of the night, whisked away in drones. We've also seen, this is another example that, you know, relates to the rule of law. And we've seen the General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, who is not supposed to be campaigning or maybe holding political crowds, yet he is a sitting general, being given the leeway to do so. Yet the NUP, you know, organizes political meetings and it is a registered political party, but then these are, you know, stopped by police even when they are considered to be harmless.
Isn't that a misconception of who Muhoozi is and what he is doing? Muhoozi, the general, has never made any political rally. It's either birthday party, a man with his own money. It's either talent search, is searching for talents. It's either music, like he's now in Kabale, for music and reconciliation with people. That's what Muhoozi is doing. But I have ever seen a general who is a general on the taxpayers' money, on any salary, General Tinyefuza, when he came to Nakivubo, and he stood on a public rally of opposition in Besije, and he spoke there, and nobody was criticizing that. But we have never seen him was doing any political rally. I only see birthday, talent search, and my father has sent me as in my office as a senior presidential advisor on special operations, which is special operations you journalists as the fourth estate are not asking. Maybe we need to tell you what those special operations are, because we know them.
Mr. Kakpoza, that will be a discussion for next
another
time.
Day.
And of course, we time bar, it is just a few minutes to the top of the hour. We do appreciate, of course, your company here on BTM Television. It is the Daybreak, where we, break, just like the Daybreak. We do break for you matters to deal with economics, politics, social life, and of course, each and everything that is considered to be a matter of national importance. My guest for today was Mr. Kakoza Balude Timothy, who did, give us a fruitful discussion over there, as he did, of course, internalize on matters of the NRM, matters of the Anshit scandal, and also matters to do with the NRM caucus, which is expected to be sitting anytime soon. Now, as we do conclude, of course, Mr. Kakoza, I don't know if at all you have any parting shots that you could give in just a few seconds.
Can I speak this in Uganda?
Yeah, very
all right. Just allow me, in my village, my hometown, where I was born, ekyalo bakiyita Kyerima, ove Kayunga mu tawuni n'okwata ku Lugende Bale. Kati awo Kyerima waliwo akatawuni, kati kansala w'ekitundu ekyo ate nga ye deputy mayor mulamu wange, kubanga namwandu wa mukulu wange gwe nalinzirako, ampeereza message n'ansaba nti waliwo omukyala yafuna ekizibu ku bwongo. Kati bw'afuna ekizibu ku bwongo, omukyala bamuyita Sumaiya, ali mu myaka nga 3. Agamba nti kitaawe bamuyita Kitagenda Abdulu, abeera mu kitundu ky'Enyanama. Kati bamujjanjabye, obwongo bugenze butereera. Bwe muba mulina omuntu yenna Enyanama gwe mumanyi nga bamuyita Kitagenda Abdu, muwala waffe yabula ng'afunye ekikyamu ku bwongo, ali mu katawuni k'Ekyerima e Bugerere ng'okwata ku Ligende Bale, kilometers nga 7 okuva e Kayunga mu tawuni ku poliisi, n'ogenda osobola okumusinkana. Finally, I have to say I'm sorry. I send my sincere apology if anybody has misunderstood me. But that's my stand. It's my point of view, the way I see things. I want to appreciate you too for having me here this very morning. I send you greetings. All people who have been watching me.
Okay.
I appreciate it.
Well, that is Mr. Kakoza Balude in there, and of course I would say at this point in time we'll be calling it quits. However, do make it a point to join me tonight. That is for BTM News Today, as we'll also take a look at the day's top stories as they will be unveiling today. At this point in time, have a blessed good morning.